Greetings, Rumblers. Blue Max here with Blue Max Gaming, and we are doing the second part of our collaborative video with Mini Manlo, aka the Arclight Battery, where we're going over our current PvP decks and what we're using, what we see that is going well. Like we discussed in our previous video, Mini is currently well over 15k in PvP, and I'm sitting around 13.5. But the key thing here is both of us have been playing a lot of PvP, and we've been collaborating a lot within our internal Discord server within our guild Diablo Gaming. So I'm going to cover Rend, I'm going to cover Baron, Rend, Maeiv, and then Drakk, and in that order. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. And I've got my Baron deck up here. And of course, we're using Chill of the Grave. It's just still so strong. We're using Ghoul for control, Skeletons, Quillbore, and Execute to either capture a tower or retake or defend. And of course, Safe Pilot, which just provides so much utility all across the map. And I'm currently using Prowler just for some extra DPS to defend at the base or to launch a counterattack at the enemy barracks. It just depends upon who I'm playing against and how the map is going. But the key thing there, of course, is just avoid being predictable. So, Minnie, what are you doing with Baron right now?
So, real quick, I want to comment about your build. I really like it, being
Okay.
able to do Skeletons, Quillbore, Execute onto side towers, or even having Prowler help with that. I think is
Mm-hmm.
very strong right now. But I am playing something a little different. Well, actually, quite a bit different.
Quite a bit.
So I've been on a Gargoyle kick lately.
Yeah,
So where your Skeletons are, I have Gargoyle, and
makes
then
sense.
where your Prowler is, or actually where your Execute is, I have Polymorph, and then where your Prowler is, I have an Elemental slot, and I have Polymorph. So what
Okay.
I really like about this, and I know that a lot of people don't like playing Baron when they're actually playing Baron, they just want his mages.
Right.
I really like the pacing between Gargoyle and Baron. So what I've
Okay.
been doing is I've been playing Gargoyle on my side tower with enough gold to defend him. And so what happens is you'll get lots of pressure from skeleton mages, and it's at some point in the map you have enough gold to play your gargoyle and then aggressively defend him. So like
Uh-huh.
safe pilot, quillboard to tank the tower, and blizzard. And
Right.
generally what happens is they spend all of their gold they have dealing with the gargoyle while you're also responding so that you're dealing what they're trying to do to your gargoyle.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, you can play your Baron right afterwards because he's so fast that once they've spent all their gold dealing with your Gargoyle, Baron gets to their base very quickly and they don't
Yeah.
have enough gold to defend from him as well. So I really
Okay.
like the pacing of like slow, really strong unit that they have to deal with, and then really quick unit as well. So it feels like you to bridge that gap of gold generation and you get.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. You're altering the rhythm. You're throwing your opponent off guard, and basically you're just continually taking the initiative, right?
Mhm.
Forcing the action to how you want it to play. No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, like we said in the first part of this series, so much of either taking or not losing a tower is just having that map awareness and paying attention to what your opponent is doing, and not just getting tunnel vision and focusing exclusively upon watching the minutia of your offensive push. And
Yep.
I suspect you're pretty good at that at this point.
Sometimes I get caught off guard. There are a couple times where I'm just like really watching my gargoyle. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so good, and then I just
Mm-hmm.
lose my side tower. But
Yep.
generally, I'm decent at defending it.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably a once a day thing. You just get caught like that, and then you remember, oh yeah, I've got to keep good map awareness,
Mhm.
and focus all over the map. And to me, Warcraft Rumble and PvP is so much like a game of chess, not only are you on the fly doing calculations to determine, okay, is this exchange going to be favorable or at least equal, but also you don't want to just get dogmatically fixed into this is my opening sequence. This is how I play this deck. You have to be dynamic and respond to what your opponent is doing. And I think that's probably what differentiates good players from the very best.
Yeah,
That's my thought.
I'd, I'd agree with that. I mean, for me specifically, I think with my gargoyle builds, I
Mm-hmm.
am still being reactive to what's happening. I'm not just dumping my gold on the map, but
Yeah,
there are like certain sequences that I want to follow. Like for
sure.
my Tyrion build, for example, which we talked about in my
Mm-hmm.
video, I really like getting Tyrion down the left lane to eventually meet the gargoyle that's going down the right lane, and I always
Sure.
like putting potions in the right lane as well. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely having a plan, but also staying reactive so that you're not just dying to what your opponent is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. So moving on, this is my particular Rend build currently, although I've also run Gargoyle in the place of Harpies. Harpies in previous maps and metas has just been so hard countered with Chain Lightning to the point to where people just don't use Harpies and don't even think of Harpies as a PvP unit. And several of us within Diablo Gaming are trying to take advantage of that and reintroduce Harpies specifically to just melt Gargoyle, Prowler, Warsong, probably even Baron whenever they get to the base. Um, it's very rare that I see Harpies in this build be successful at attacking a barracks. It's going to take a very carefully orchestrated push, especially with using Quillbore to drop over to the left and keep the barracks distracted. Um, it only works a few times out of each time you run it, so mostly using mostly using harpies in a defensive capacity. But outside of that, it's a pretty common Rend build using deep breath for control as well as chip a little bit of damage off. Um, eggs are great against ground units that will actually target ground units, but right now with Warsong Raider running that siege talent, you just don't see it too. We were discussing whelp eggs is probably not as good, at least in my experience, whenever you do run into Warsong Raider, but it can be just used for center map control or dealing with ground units that will target units. So, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts here, Minnie?
I do really like whelp eggs right now. I think they're very good against specific things, and especially if they only cost two. But like harpies, they're not very much running right now. Change if harpies get popular.
Mm-hmm.
However, harpies to rocket towers. The problem is the lanes are narrow, so they kind of single file down the lanes, and so when your base rocket tower targets the first one, so it gets out a tower blast, but the other two are coming behind it, and so you lose two harpies in that process, and the other one doesn't do a ton of damage. Now, if all three harpies get to the base, that's fantastic. So you can distract
Yeah.
with a quill bore or even a dark iron miner in a pinch. And I think if you can get the harpies to the base, they'll be fantastic. I am currently not running harpies. Um, though our builds are fairly similar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running eggs, deep breath, miner, quillbore, safe pilot, and then I have just switched to prowler. I was trying him out, but
Okay.
I'm ashamed to say that I was running gargoyle in his spot because I love gargoyle.
Well, I mean, it does make it hard for you to respond to some unique threats. And Rend already provides a lot of that flying utility, but you do get the -1 gold cost on guard when played with Rend, so that
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot of sense. And like we discussed in the previous video, instead of using Double Dragon, you can use attunement to add resist to your units, and that will just keep them alive longer.
Mm-hmm. You
I
have to
did
keep in
see,
mind, though. Oh,
yeah.
I apologize. You have to keep in mind that attunement is only 10 seconds long. It doesn't say that in the tooltip, so you need
Hmm.
to use it when you are actually going to be taking elemental damage.
Yep.
Because if you use it to clear something like at your base, and then you also use it to give something resist. The resist will probably run out before it actually matters.
Yep. Yep. Very, very good point. I generally run it only at their base when I'm using it for that purpose, but that is a very good point to draw out. Okay. So we'll go over to Maiev, who is still just so strong right now. Um, and I'm using Polymorph and Safe to defend against heavy pushes against my base. Defius Bandits for the stun and DPS also at base. And then we're just focusing on leveraging Maev's power as an unbound unit with the Quilboar Skelly Execute to capture a tower. And Maiev can be a great follow up, especially if you've got her at a low enough gold to make it really make sense. And then once you have control of the towers, Quilboar on one side, Maiev on the other, Execute in the middle is just a very, very strong push, and it's hard to deal with once you have map control and you're basically denying your opponent access to gold.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts there?
I really like all that. I do
Mm-hmm.
not have a lot of experience on Maiev. She was my lowest leader not that long ago. She's very good, so I started to kind of push her up a little bit, like on breaks at work and over lunch sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, though I haven't done that in a little bit. I'm running Safe Pilot, Quillbore, uh, Dark Iron Miner, Deep Breath, Defias Bandits, and Gargoyle. However, that was mainly just kind of jamming all of the other spells that I played in my other decks into
Yeah.
Maiev and just making it work. I would imagine that your build is much better than mine. I think Polymorph really helps you take care of a couple things,
Uh-huh.
and like 3 gold Polymorph followed by a 1 or 2 gold Maiev to really clean up everything you polymorphed is probably really strong, especially since you're getting 1 gold back from the Golden Fleece.
Yeah.
And if you polymorph a large group of enemies and then drop a Maiev, it's pretty easy to get the kill on the Golden Sheep
Mm-hmm.
because she's gonna kill everything. Um,
Okay.
yeah, she is just super solid all around. Being able to play her wherever you want to because she's unbound is very solid.
Very, very solid indeed. And I was looking to see if Maev's attack was elemental or physical, because I had never thought of using
It is
her. Um,
physical.
it's physical. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
so if it's a particularly tanky unit that you just got done polymorphing, then you may need to consider using safe. But that's a very interesting idea, and will definitely be worth playing out. See how it goes.
So let me check something
Yeah.
real quick. So they become vulnerable,
Right.
which is a keyword, and I
Yes.
believe that makes them lose. Or sorry, I believe it makes them lose armored as well. Polymorph. So vulnerable means they take double elemental damage. Yeah,
Yes.
but the
Yes.
key part of polymorph is that it removes the armor from them.
Yeah.
It also removes resistance, so she will do more damage with her fan of knives if
Yeah.
it's on an
And
armored target, like a ground rend or a warsong raider.
and with that first stroke, she'll also do damage to a gargoyle that's just floating in the air.
Mm-hmm. Though Gargoyle does have a lot of HP, so you probably won't kill him with her, but still good.
The key here is options. We want as
Mm-hmm.
many options as we can, and Maiev really brings a lot of flexibility to the table, and that's what makes her so strong.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to move on to the final leader that I'm discussing, and it's, of course, General Drakkasath. And you've probably noticed that in almost every one of our decks, you've got Quilboar, Safe, Poly, and either Execute or Deep Breath. And that's the case here. But similar to your Tyrion deck, we also have Griffin with that potion drop. And yes, you can run a shaman with the totem that heals, but also giving Drakk armor is very strong. This is I play Drakk similar to how you play Tyrion, where it's just a slow, gradual death ball push, but while
Mhm.
still leaving some flexibility to respond to enemy attacks with poly and safe. And
All
the
right.
key is if you can just keep flexible, but also keep on your task of building up the death ball, Drakk is extremely hard to beat.
Absolutely. So I really like your build with the Griffin Rider dropping potions, and I haven't actually tried that in Drakk South, but I imagine it's very good. The armor talent is really good, and probably what you'll play. Um, there may be a case for just the healing totem, like you said, because
Mm-hmm.
resist pretty much covers everything on this map. Like
True.
Griffin Riders generally in play, but I mean it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't do that much damage, and the
Sure.
alone healing it should probably keep it alive pretty much. I I'm not running Polymorph or Griffin, and instead I'm running Miner to fit the Blackrock slot, and
Okay.
I'm running Holy Nova. Now Holy
Okay.
Nova, I have the Amplify Magic talent that doubles against all elemental minis. So that's double healing if it hits your elemental minis, and double damage if it hits their elemental minis.
Nice.
However, I think there's a case if Polymorph becomes very popular
Mm-hmm.
that Inner Fire is better, um, because Polymorph strips them of armored and resist, and I believe that Inner Fire, if used after the Polymorph
Ooh.
happens, will give them armored and resist back. So that may be something to look into. I
Yes.
don't know how popular Polymorph is. I know that we have been running it in our decks, but I don't see it hardly in any other lists at the top. Um, so
Same.
take that with a grain of salt.
Take it with a grain of salt, but we're uh, we're, we're having a fair amount of success with it, so I think it's definitely worth investigating. And Poly is one of those few spells that myself and I see other people you don't you don't have to be super dogmatic about putting it in a proper Valor slot. It's a tricky one to get into a slot, and if you're planning your poly correctly, you can get away with losing what you're losing a half a second, right? Because you're losing a level.
Mm-hmm.
So just take that with a grain of salt. Okay,
Yeah.
so that pretty much wraps this up. So thank you, Mini Manlo, so much for doing this collaborative project. I'm going to put Minnie's uh, Twitch and YouTube and other social media links in the description. Chances are you don't need them. He's a very, very well known streamer, but always great to support. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He, well, Minnie
well,
is very
thank,
well known and respected within the Diablo gaming community. I appreciate the collaboration.
well, thank you for flattering me. I appreciate it.
It's not flattery if it's true. All right. Thank y'all so very much. Thank you for watching and have a great one.